Silence is loud, but scandal is louder. And in a world addicted to noise, the loudest thing always feels like the truth. That is the first lie we fall for. A viral relationship scandal does not go viral because it is true. It goes viral because it touches something unresolved inside us, something hungry, something insecure, something curious, something wounded. People say, "I just want to know the truth." But psychology teaches us something uncomfortable. Most people are not looking for truth. They are looking for emotional validation. They are looking for a story that justifies their fears, their jealousy, their bitterness, or their hope. And when a private relationship explodes into public spectacle, it becomes the perfect playground for projection. A relationship scandal is never just about two people. It becomes a mirror where millions see their own betrayal, their own abandonment, their own unfulfilled fantasies. That is why strangers become emotionally invested overnight. That is why timelines turn into courtrooms. Everyone becomes a judge, a psychologist, a moral authority, without knowing the full story, without knowing the inner wounds, without knowing the years of emotional context. Psychology calls this parasocial intimacy. We feel close to people we have never met. We feel entitled to their lives because we have consumed their image, their words, their curated moments. And when something breaks, we feel personally betrayed, as if a contract was violated. But the contract never existed. It was an illusion. The most dangerous part of a viral relationship scandal is not the scandal itself. It is the collective loss of empathy. People stop seeing humans and start seeing characters. One becomes the villain, the other the victim. Black and white, clean and simple. The human brain loves simplicity because complexity requires effort, and effort is uncomfortable. But real relationships are not simple. They are messy, they are layered, they are shaped by childhood wounds, attachment styles, unmet needs, power dynamics, fear of abandonment, fear of intimacy, ego injuries, unresolved trauma, and social pressure. None of this fits into a 30-second clip. When a relationship becomes public property, something strange happens. The private pain of two individuals becomes entertainment for millions. Pain turns into content. Tears turn into thumbnails. Silence turns into speculation. And the algorithm rewards outrage, not understanding. Let's talk about why people enjoy watching relationship scandals. Because deep down, many people are afraid of intimacy. Watching someone else's relationship fail reassures them. See, love doesn't last. Trust is dangerous. Commitment is risky. It validates emotional avoidance. It protects the ego from trying again. Others enjoy it because it feeds moral superiority. Pointing fingers feels powerful. Condemning others distracts us from examining our own emotional failures. It is easier to say they were wrong than to ask, why do I keep repeating the same patterns? Some people attach themselves to one side because they see themselves in that role. They relive their own story through someone else's pain. This is not support. This is emotional substitution. And then there is the darker truth. Outrage is addictive. The brain releases dopamine when we feel morally stimulated. Anger feels like purpose. Judgment feels like control. But here is what psychology whispers quietly, while the internet screams, you cannot understand a relationship by watching its collapse. You only see the final fracture, not the years of pressure that created it. Most relationship scandals are not about betrayal alone. They are about emotional neglect long before the betrayal. They are about power imbalance. They are about communication breakdown. They are about unhealed childhood attachment wounds. Anxious attachment chasing reassurance, avoidant attachment running from vulnerability. One person may crave closeness because abandonment feels like death. The other may crave distance because closeness feels like suffocation. When these two collide, love turns into a battlefield. But the internet does not talk about that because that would require maturity. Instead, we reduce complex emotional dynamics into labels: toxic, narcissist, manipulator, victim. These words get thrown around carelessly, stripping them of meaning. Psychology becomes a weapon instead of a tool for understanding. And let's be very clear, not every painful behavior is narcissism. Not every emotional withdrawal is manipulation. Not every silence is cruelty. Sometimes silence is survival. Sometimes distance is self-protection. Sometimes people hurt others because they don't know how to sit with their own pain. A viral relationship scandal also exposes something deeply uncomfortable about society. We demand vulnerability, but punish it when it appears messy. We say, be real. But when reality shows confusion, contradiction, emotional weakness, we attack. We want vulnerability packaged neatly, heroically with perfect explanations. Real vulnerability is chaotic, and we are not emotionally equipped to handle it. There is also the issue of gender expectations. Society unconsciously assigns emotional roles. One must be strong, composed, rational. The other must be emotional, expressive, sacrificial. When someone breaks their assigned role, backlash follows. Psychology does not care about these roles. Trauma does not respect them. Pain does not follow social scripts. Another truth people don't like hearing: public image is not private reality. What you see online is a performance filtered through branding, fear, and strategy. When that image cracks, people feel deceived. But deception was mutual. We chose to believe the illusion because it was comforting. A relationship scandal feels shocking only because we forget one simple fact. Love does not make people healed. Love exposes wounds. Intimacy magnifies insecurity. Commitment triggers childhood fears. The closer we get to someone, the louder our unresolved trauma speaks. And when two wounded people love each other without self-awareness, the relationship becomes intense, addictive, unstable, and eventually explosive. But the internet does not ask what pain was activated here. It asks who is wrong. That question is emotionally lazy. Psychology asks better questions. Why did this dynamic feel familiar to them? What unmet needs were being negotiated silently? What fears were never spoken? What boundaries were crossed slowly, not suddenly? A scandal makes us forget that most emotional damage happens quietly, not publicly. Long before a breaking point, there are thousands of small moments of feeling unseen, unheard, unchosen. When those moments accumulate, people don't leave logically, they leave emotionally, or they act out, or they self-sabotage, or they shut down. And then the internet arrives late, watches the explosion, and assumes it understands the war. There is also a cruel irony. The same audience that demands accountability rarely allows growth. Once a narrative is formed, it becomes a prison. Any attempt to explain is labeled manipulation. Any silence is labeled guilt. There is no room for complexity, only punishment. This creates performative remorse. People stop being honest and start being strategic. They speak not from healing, but from fear of cancellation, and that helps no one. Let's talk about the psychological cost of public humiliation. Shame is not corrective, it is corrosive. Shame does not teach responsibility, it teaches hiding. When someone is attacked by millions, the nervous system goes into survival mode: fight, flight, freeze. Rational reflection shuts down. Healing becomes impossible. But the internet does not care about healing, it cares about engagement. Another uncomfortable truth: many people secretly enjoy watching others fall because it temporarily elevates their own self-worth. This is called downward social comparison. At least my life is not that bad. It is a fragile form of confidence built on someone else's destruction, but it never lasts, because unresolved pain always returns. A viral relationship scandal should force us to reflect on our own emotional literacy. Do we know how to communicate disappointment without blame? Do we know how to set boundaries without cruelty? Do we know how to leave without destroying someone's dignity? Do we know how to love without losing ourselves? Most people don't. And that is the real scandal. We are emotionally undereducated, but emotionally loud. We talk about love constantly, yet rarely about attachment. We talk about loyalty, but not about emotional safety. We talk about betrayal, but not about neglect. We talk about commitment, but not about compatibility. And when relationships fail, we look for villains instead of lessons. The truth behind any viral relationship scandal is deeply unglamorous. It is not about drama. It is about two nervous systems that did not know how to regulate together. It is about emotional needs that were never translated into language. It is about fear pretending to be ego. It is about love mixed with survival instincts. And perhaps the most uncomfortable truth of all, if placed under the same spotlight, many relationships would not survive public scrutiny. Not because they are evil, but because they are human. The internet turns private pain into public morality plays. But psychology reminds us, pain does not need an audience to be real, and healing does not need approval to begin. What we choose to do when the next scandal appears says more about our emotional maturity than about the people involved. Because in the end, the real question is not who failed. The real question is, what are we learning about love, and why are we still so bad at it? And that question is far more uncomfortable than any scandal could ever be. And what makes this even more unsettling is how quickly certainty forms. Within hours, opinions harden, narratives lock into place. People stop listening and start defending the version of the story that emotionally benefits them. Psychology calls this confirmation bias. We don't seek truth, we seek reinforcement. Once we emotionally invest in a side, any new information is filtered, twisted, or rejected. Facts become less important than feeling right. There is also the illusion of access. Screens make us feel close, informed, almost involved. We confuse visibility with intimacy. Seeing someone smile, speak, share fragments of their life does not mean we understand their emotional world. But the brain fills in gaps with assumptions, and assumptions feel like knowledge. This false sense of knowing makes judgment feel justified. Another layer people rarely talk about is control. Watching someone else's relationship unravel gives people a sense of power over chaos. By labeling, dissecting, and condemning, we impose order on something frightening, emotional unpredictability. Love reminds us that no matter how careful we are, things can still fall apart. Scandals allow us to believe that failure only happens to those who deserve it. But relationships don't collapse because someone deserves pain. They collapse because two people stop meeting each other emotionally, sometimes slowly, sometimes suddenly. Disconnection is rarely loud at first. It whispers. It shows up as delayed replies, emotional distance, unshared thoughts, unspoken resentment. By the time the world notices, the relationship has already been grieving in private. Public reaction often ignores grief. Grief does not always look gentle. Sometimes it looks like anger. Sometimes it looks like numbness. Sometimes it looks like contradiction, saying one thing today and another tomorrow. Trauma fragments memory and emotion. Expecting perfect consistency from emotionally overwhelmed people is not realism. It is cruelty disguised as logic. And then there is the demand for explanations. People feel entitled to closure they were never owed. Silence becomes suspicious. Speaking becomes incriminating. No response is the wrong response because the audience is not actually seeking clarity. They are seeking satisfaction. And satisfaction rarely comes from complexity. Psychologically, humans struggle with ambiguity. We want clean endings, good versus bad, right versus wrong, but relationships live in the gray. Two people can hurt each other without either being evil. Two truths can exist at the same time. Love can be real and damage can still occur. Another uncomfortable detail. Many people use viral scandals to rehearse their own unresolved arguments. They speak as if addressing the people who once hurt them. The comments are not really comments. They are emotional letters never sent. This is why reactions feel disproportionate. The situation activates old wounds, and the body responds as if the past is happening again. There is also a performance of empathy online that is rarely about empathy. It is about being seen as morally correct. Supporting the right side becomes part of identity. Nuance threatens that identity, so nuance is attacked. Emotional tribalism replaces understanding. And quietly beneath all of this, something more damaging happens. People become more afraid of intimacy. They learn that love is not just risky, it is public. That mistakes are not just painful, they are permanent. That growth is not allowed under observation. This creates emotional paralysis. People choose emotional safety over emotional depth. The scandal does not just affect the people involved. It educates millions on what not to do, but rarely on how to do better. Fear replaces curiosity. Cynicism replaces vulnerability. What is rarely acknowledged is how much emotional labor it takes to love responsibly, to listen without defensiveness, to repair after conflict, to own harm without self-destruction, to leave without humiliation. These skills are not taught, yet everyone is expected to master them under pressure. And when those skills fail, the world does not ask how to build them, it asks who to blame. The attention economy thrives on emotional extremes. Calm reflection does not trend. Compassion does not go viral. Outrage does. And so every scandal becomes louder, harsher, more dehumanizing than the last. We are not becoming more informed. We are becoming more reactive. Somewhere in this cycle, the original human story is lost. Two people who once chose each other are reduced to symbols. Their inner lives become irrelevant. Their future healing becomes secondary to present entertainment. And still, people say they are tired of drama while feeding it with clicks, comments, and certainty. Psychology reminds us of something inconvenient. The way we consume other people's pain shapes our own emotional capacity. The more casually we judge, the harder it becomes to self-reflect. The more we dehumanize, the more disconnected we become from our own vulnerability. A viral relationship scandal does not reveal who someone truly is. It reveals how we handle discomfort, uncertainty, and emotional complexity. It reveals how quickly empathy collapses when the story becomes inconvenient. It reveals how easily we trade understanding for stimulation. And beneath all the noise, one quiet truth remains. Relationships are not built for spectators. They are built for participation, patience, and privacy, things the internet does not reward. So before you pick a side, before you forward a clip, before you turn someone's worst emotional moment into casual conversation, pause. Ask yourself one hard question. Am I trying to understand, or am I trying to feel superior? Because the moment we confuse judgment with wisdom, we don't just damage others, we train ourselves to be less human. The real danger is not a broken relationship. Relationships break every day, quietly, without an audience. The real danger is a society that has forgotten how to sit with complexity, how to hold two truths at once, how to see pain without turning it into punishment. When empathy dies, intimacy follows. And when intimacy dies, trust doesn't just disappear from relationships, it disappears from culture. If this scandal triggers you, it's not a weakness, it's information. It's pointing to something unresolved inside you that deserves attention, not projection. Use that awareness. Don't waste it on outrage. Turn it inward. Heal what reacts so loudly, because one day you may be the one misunderstood. One day your silence may be labeled guilt, your confusion called manipulation, your humanity reduced to a headline. And in that moment, you will not need judges. You will need understanding. Choose wisely what kind of world you help create, one that feeds on destruction or one that still remembers how to see people as people.